Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
You're listening to the Archaeology Podcast Network.
You have my sword.
And you have my bow.
And my trowel. Hello, you're listening to episode 42 of And My Trowel, where we look at the fantastic side of archaeology and the archaeological side of fantasy. I'm Tilly.
And I'm Ash.
And today, after having been dragged outdoors to a weather-beaten, pun intended, hill...
Oh, come on, Tilly. I saw you grinning the entire time we were digging. Don't act like you don't occasionally enjoy a bit of excavation.
Okay, fine. It was pretty cool. I will accept it as my annual excavation season.
I guess that's as good a response as I can expect.
But now it gets really exciting because you know what comes after excavation?
Post-excavation?
Exactly, otherwise known as the domain of Tilly.
Before we get into that, though, let's remind ourselves of the scenario, okay? So the Númenórean Revitalization, which I cannot say at council, has tasked us with excavating the site of Weathertop, also known as Amon Sûl, the watchtower that was originally built by the Númenóreans, and then one of the chief towers in the kingdom of Arnor. They want us to learn more about the archaeological significance of the tower and if there is any other information we can glean from the now ruin.
Okay, so we did the excavation. We've been out there for like a week or two now.
A week? No, we've been there 6 weeks. You were there 2 weeks because you don't like being outside.
Well, I was helping with like local interaction, public outreach.
Oh, you're doing the community engagement. I forgot about that. Right. You mean you were in the Prancing Pony having a pint and Brie? Aye, okay.
It's called community engagement, Ash.
Yeah, okay. Wish I could community engage a bit more as well.
So I'm using the term we here very loosely, but what did we learn?
Tilly had a pint and I commanded a team of dwarves to excavate.
So yes, tell me what happened. What did you do? What did you do?
We did the geophys. You were there for that.
I was there for that.
And we found some cool features, some that we weren't really sure about. Obviously, it's been a while since it was abandoned. So the ruins, we had excavated a few more. So we found some internal structures as well within the watchtower. We found a bit of the staircase. And then, we added some more trial trenching around there. So we did some small test pits, meter by meter, and we found some cool settlement sites. Yes, you did one.
I did one.
You did one. Yeah, you did. You were quite shocked that there was no permafrost, that there was actually bedrock.
It was deeper than 50 centimeters. So I was like, oh.
It was, yeah. You're like, oh no. She had her little feet dangling out the hole and everything. It was funny. And you didn't hurt your knees one bit.
I didn't. I was very careful. No. That's probably why it took me 4 times as long to dig that one test pit as it did you and the other dwarves to dig.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't.
Test pits, but,
I wasn't going to hold it against you, but we did keep record. And there was, we were like, God, is she going to be finished today? No. I think actually, Durin had to finish your test pit.
Can I actually tell you an anecdote of a real excavation?
Yes.
I conducted with my current company, and I was outside and I was working with someone else who was also quite new to the firm, and he didn't have any field archaeological experience, or very limited as well. And we were in charge of doing a profile. So like making sure that the side of a test pit was very nice and clean, and you could see all of the different layers of sediment and all of that kind of thing. So I was there for 2 days in a row. And the first day we did that, we prepared it and everything. And the next day it was just me and he wasn't there. And someone came in and he was going, yeah, maybe you can work on this. Oh my God, look at this profile. Who dug this profile? And I was like, that would be me.
Was it like sloping?
I thought it wasn't too bad actually. But I mean, yeah, no, it wasn't.
Oh, it's a great pride, isn't it? If you have a very nice straight section.
Again,
heavy straight sections.
I'm not the best at that. But anyway, you guys did a very good job. So
yeah, we did. Thanks. Actually, a lot of the tools that they brought from the Misty Mountains was actually really helpul in the excavation. I was a bit worried about not being able to, find the tools that we needed, but some of them were very similar to like the hoes and crafters that we need. So I think we did really well given what we had.
And an axe is very good at leveling off that profile. So
oh gosh, it's like a Japanese hoe. Have you ever used one of those?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, the hand axes are great. So we did have an issue trying to take photographs. So we managed to find a wizard who could help us take photographs of all of our excavation shots. So we had our general shots, of the site itself, and then
showing what it is, where
it is, location, beforehand the excavation. Then we had like our mid-excavation shots, or pre-excavation, mid-excavation, and then post-excavation. So the wizard was very busy, but we've got a whole 3D model of it. Actually, he was able to link all those photos.
The point, what's it called? The survey points and things.
And we were able to kind of figure out. He used his wand as our GPS. Yeah. So that was really handy. So we got all the different points that we needed. So all of our find spots as well, and all of our drawing points were all recorded. So actually, we've got a good basis of recording for Weathertop, which I'm really excited about, and I think the findings are going to be fantastic. But what on your end, the post-ex, and what did we find?
So I got a really nice big cupboard full of different buckets and sieves and all kinds of things that the objects are just kind of put in and then shuttled off to the lab so that we can continue processing them and keep working on them. So we found all kinds of different objects and materials. I haven't had a chance to look through properly yet, so that's actually what we're going to be kind of starting with today, and we're going to be looking through that, and that's our next task now that we're away from the site, is to process everything that we found at the site and all of the data that we collected at the site as well. So, first of all, the objects, for me, are the most exciting always to go through. So I guess we could talk about like what sort of objects we would expect to have here, because all of the objects, when they're found, they do get their specific location marked on a little sheet that is then put in the bucket with them, so that we know exactly where they were found, exactly which context they come from, exactly which layer of the soil and all of that kind of thing, which part of the site.
Yeah, but they get their own finds number as well.
Exactly. And sometimes they're particular objects, they're sort of, it's obvious enough what they are that people can already kind of identify them and write that on the sheet as well. Although speaking from experience, quite often, as soon as they're washed, they're then like, no, never mind. That's not one of those things at all.
That piece of pottery was definitely mud.
Yes, exactly. Oh God, the amount of pieces of pottery that I've had, I'm like, this is just a solid bit of mud.
I don't think I've told you this one before, but I was on a community dig, and fair enough, it was a community dig. So your engagement with the communities are there to do the little trial pits that we do. And this one guy was really excited because he said he found a piece of leather.
Oh.
And we were like, wow, okay, that's really exciting. Yeah. Like in Scotland, that's insane because it's like so acidic. And we were looking for like another burial, Pictish burial, and it was this kind of clan that had done some genealogy tests and they were related to this Pictish man apparently. So it was a big thing. So we were really excited. We were like, okay, let's go over. And he like put it carefully in. Sorry, he put it carefully in the poly bag and everything, give it a finds number. It was a mud tread from his shoe.
Oh. I mean, cool that he managed to preserve that.
Cool. Yeah, because it was a very clay site. Well, I was like, that's really good. I love the process. And like, you did all the things right. Unfortunately, that is a piece of mud. With your boot tread in it.
But yes, so you do indeed, you already start to have a thing. So for example, at a very acidic site in Scotland, you would not necessarily expect to find organic materials.
But you can sometimes.
You can sometimes, but you have to think a little bit as well about what sort of things you might be wanting to expect. So if you think about the fact that it was Weathertop, once it got split between these kingdoms, it was actually the focus because it was the midpoint of these three kingdoms. It was kind of a long-running kind of territorial dispute almost between the three kings, these brothers. So there were, border skirmishes, there were some minor wars. So at this point, Weathertop probably changed hands a couple of times. So we would expect to see that kind of difference between these kingdoms. Although, of course, we need to look a bit further into the actual culture of these kingdoms and see whether the objects were indeed that different, like see whether you could identify from which kingdom the object came.
You'd probably find different sigils or something in the material culture because, if they're trying to take over a certain area, then they're going to get rid of most of the stuff, aren't they?
Yeah.
Or especially in warfare, when you're doing warfare, war like battlefields and things like that, when you're surveying them, usually they don't leave a lot.
Yeah.
Because they take everything. Yeah. You know, like your sword. You wouldn't leave your sword.
No.
That's your great-grandfather's sword.
Yeah.
You know, like that's got a name. You wouldn't leave it. So we wouldn't necessarily expect to find that, but we'd probably find organic, like situational burning and things like that.
Yeah, things that have been dropped, things that are
buttons.
Reusable.
Pins, things like that.
Kind of thing. Yeah, maybe broken bits of pots that have smashed somewhere or something. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
And then, of course, it was, very famously burned down in the Third Age, 1409. So we would expect to see this layer as well, which I do believe you found, correct?
Yes, we did. We found lots of different stuff in it.
I'm also expecting then, of course, before the burnt layer, that's when it was really this watchtower. That was when it was the more sort of defensive position. But after that, it's just been kind of used as a general, like, shelter for people we were talking about last episode, right? It's that kind of merchant way, traveling way, voyager way. So it's just a nice, handy place to rest up for the night. So you might expect to find some,
we found some occupational stuff just tread into the kind of layers. So you found more. There was a lot of charcoal in there, probably straw, things like that were in the
horses.
Yeah.
Like
on the floor, rushes, things like that. And then there was smaller objects, pieces of pottery, like you said. There was beads, a few beads that we found too. Tiny little glass beads. Yes. Very nice. You'll see them.
I'm so excited to go through these objects.
Yeah. They were really cool. We're like, ooh. Yeah. We found a coin as well.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
coins are perfect to find because
so that dated it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, which are great. Nice.
And that was to the Kingdom of Anor, so that was
right. So that's quite an early occupation. Yeah,
early occupation stuff. Yeah, definitely.
Very cool. Okay, well, I guess the first thing then that we should do is make a bit of a kind of post-excavation plan. So we know what kinds of things we're going to expect. We know what kinds of layers we took things from. So. Do you know what the first thing is when processing objects?
Figure out what the object is.
Which is interesting. So, this is basically one of my main jobs. My current work is you get these sieves, you get these lumps of things covered in soil. And first of all, you have to distinguish them based on material. And then depending on what material they are, they either go to be washed or they go to be dried. And for us, we dry them for at least a month, so that they're all fully dried out because we have bone and we have stones and wood and all kinds of things. The wood has to be processed in a slightly different way.
Because it can't dry out too much. Glass is also very similar.
Yes, exactly. Glass thing. Certain bones as well, you don't want to wash if they're too fragile. Different kinds of daub, like depending on how the construction, maybe there was some wattle and daub walls inside the tower. I don't know if they would have had that at that period though, so I'm not expecting to find that, but you never know. Sometimes it can be found.
I think that could, it was of stone, but it doesn't mean that you won't get bits of mortar and things like that are still.
All the mortar bits would be really interesting to see as well. And those bits don't get washed, for example. They just get dry cleaned. Dry cleaned is cleaned, dry, not dry cleaned.
Not like we take them to a dry cleaner.
Yes. We'll just take them to a dry cleaner down the road and they'll sort out our mortar. They can press my sleeves while they're at it. So that's generally the first kind of step that we want to do, is we want to sort of separate out all the material and we want to wash something so that we can see them better. You need to be careful when washing, of course, because you don't want to wash off too much.
Because you might find, especially with the pottery, you might have any food residue on there. So that can be used in testing and dating. So,
yeah, exactly. And you have so many different kinds of analysis you can do on objects as well. So you mentioned dating. So you can do like carbon-14 on organic remains such as wood or bone. You can do dendrochronology if you have nicely preserved wooden remains. You can do artifact analysis as well. So microware, which we have spoken about in previous episodes when we looked at axes. You can do petrography, which is basically looking to see how ceramic vessels were made, what kind of materials they were made from. And those are all interesting because then you can tell exactly where these objects have come from a lot of the time. You can do kind of provenance analysis. So you can see, okay, was this from a local kingdom? Was this from further away? Was it an object that had been kind of traded? Was it an object that is maybe just from a passing traveler, depending on what occupation level it's in? So there's all sorts of things you can say with that.
And we also have to look at our samples as well, because we sampled quite a lot of things. So I would probably, are you going to do flotation?
Yes.
Yeah.
True. I assume you took soil samples.
Yeah, soil samples. We had a lot of organic charred seeds and charcoal and things like that. We can also find when you do flotation. So flotation is essentially like soil samples that are dried and placed in like a mesh and a tank, and then you sort of immerse them in water, and that breaks down, the lighter materials from the heavier materials in the soil, and then therefore stuff like charred seals and charcoal and bone fragments float. Yeah. So you can find that, and then it's collected in a sieve and a bucket, and then you're kind of like having a look through them, and you sort of sort them out. And one of our guests, Jen, who's been on a few times, she does a lot of that stuff, and she can look at different seeds and tell you which seed is what and what piece of wood is what and stuff like that. Right? So you can get so much information. So maybe there's a lot of like Weathertop is like thousands of years of occupation. So obviously the flora and fauna and the weather and the climate will change during that time too. Yeah. True. So you're going to get a lot of different things coming out of that can tell you so much more information about the landscape and the people living there too.
Yeah, exactly. Because we know it was a defensive fort, but just because it's a defensive fort, especially in the earlier occupational periods, it probably had a lot of settlement around it, and it probably had stuff going on that wasn't just focused on the defense.
Yeah, exactly. And also if you're thinking like people are coming from different places to this area for defense. So that means that you're going to have, like you said, trade, not with just objects, but also grains and food stuff. Yeah. So if you're going to find that in the charcoal and, your charred seeds, then that can tell you who's trading with who. Yeah. So it could be that they're trading with people in Brie. It could be that they're trading even further afield. So even to Rivendell. Like, imagine if you found some lamnus bread.
Oh my god!
I don't know.
That would be very cool.
Like just little charcoal lamnus bread, that'd be so funny. But so there's lots of stuff.
A long time, right? Because they last really
long. Like what's that made of?
It would be well preserved. I feel like we need to do a separate
grain is that made of?
This. Yeah.
The morphology of lamnus bread.
Yeah. So I mean, there's so much that we need to do. I guess,
and I think it's probably going to take longer than the excavation to actually go through everything.
It usually doesn't it? Yeah. Let's be honest. It usually takes like a year or so. I think we should get started. So I guess we'll start with sorting through the materials and washing the finds.
Okay. I'll go and start pumping water from the well, and we'll be right back.
Oh, that's a lot of washing that we just did. We really need to get an intern for this kind of task.
That is a good idea. Maybe we should put a posting up in the tavern since, you did so much community engagement.
True, yeah. Well, although actually, I'm not sure the tavern is the best place to advertise for an intern.
Yeah. I mean, last time we did that, we had a barbarian who wanted to open a cafe and then needed something to pay the bills while she waited for materials.
Yeah, I remember that. Cool girl, though.
Yeah. And to be fair, she made a killer lassie.
Yeah. And those cinnamon swirls to die for.
Okay, now I'm hungry. Let's get on and wrap up this post-excavation process, and then we can head down to the cafe.
Yeah, sounds like a plan. Okay, so we've gone through all the different analysis that we're going to undertake or send off to other people to undertake on our behalf. We've prepared all of the data, but now comes the most important part, because although some people out there might think that archaeologists want to hide things from the rest of the world, we actually really, really want to share what we find.
Yeah, please read our work.
Yes, we're trying. We're doing our best. And we're trying to make things more accessible, even though I'm very aware that the majority of site reports and academic papers and all that kinds of things are not as accessible to people. I don't know. That's what we hope to do by podcasts such as this.
Yeah.
What the rest of the series on the Archaeology Podcast Network are trying to do as well is make the processes that we do and make the things that we do more accessible to everyone.
Yeah, we will try and publish our finds of Weathertop.
Yes, exactly.
And we'll let you know. It might be 20 years from now, but we'll definitely get there.
It takes a while. The review process, man, especially when there are dragons involved. Ugh, yeah. It's just,
I mean...
Reviewer 2 last time. Ugh, Smaug, I think his name was. Ugh.
Oh, yeah, he's an arse.
But so in order to publish the work that we're doing, we of course have to prepare things a little bit more to be presentable.
Presentable, yes.
Yes, presentable things. So we've got all these beautifully catalogued and categorized and identified objects, some of which have had some nice analysis done on them. But yeah, we can't just say, yeah, we found some ceramic shards or we found these beautiful beads, which, by the way, you were right. They are gorgeous.
Yeah, they are gorgeous, aren't they?
Yeah. We have to actually show them as well in the work. So we need to get that wizard back at some point, and we need to take some nice photographs so that we can kind of digitize the artifacts and the objects.
Yeah, especially for the finds. Like, we already have the photographs, the general views, everything like that. So whenever we're excavating on Weathertop, basically everything we do is photographed. So every profile we cut into, every drawing we do, every post-ex point that we reach, we take photographs. So there's all the photographs are there. So we also use a meter stick. And that usually shows you the size of said feature.
Yeah.
As well. So admittedly, not everyone was great with, taking photos. I did look through them. I downloaded them. It was really weird download process from the wizard, but like it worked eventually, and we can use Word, so that's really exciting.
Oh, nice. Okay, that's
useful. So it's not, we don't have to do, like, I don't know, I written it.
Handwritten scrolls.
Yeah, that would be it.
Yeah.
So it was a really easy download process, but I was looking at them. Some was like fingers in the way,
Yeah.
The sun wasn't in the right thing.
There was like a cat walking across the screen and stuff.
Yeah, that cat's been following me around.
Yeah.
There's something going on there, but I don't know. So yeah, and then everything we dug, everything needs a finds drawing. So for me, I'm pedantic, so I did, your pre-drawing. So that's literally just like, sometimes if it's a pit, it's a circle and it's a plan drawing. That's it. I want to know the size. Everything's measured as well. So it is to scale. Okay, so you can blow it up and blow it down, but it is always to scale. So it depends on what you're doing, but it could be a 1:1 scale, it could be a 1:20 scale, and everything was planned as well. So we had a whole site plan done by hand, as well as our GPS coordinates done by the wizard. So everything is catalogued and recorded.
Is with the objects, with the finds. And it's funny, I always chat to people and they're always amazed that we still, in archaeology, don't just take photos of the objects, but we also draw the objects.
Yeah, especially if you have like a good object. Yeah. Because I think photographs can be subjective. Yeah. Drawing, though, for me, that was what I did. A lot of it was an archaeological illustration. I really enjoyed it. Yeah. But there is like a set process for that. So you know that the sun, the light is always going to come from the left-hand side. So there's nothing too subjective there. So when you're drawing, you're always drawing it from the left, so you can see more nuances and you can see that work. Especially, I think immediately of like lithics. You can see where the kind of the hits have been. Yeah, exactly. So you can really follow that with the drawing, and if flakes have come off, and you've got the core, and like you can draw all of that, and you understand the object better through drawing it than you do by taking a photo. Because how many photos do you take a day?
Well, God, these days, like,
so like you just go simple, and then you don't really, engage with that object and really feel it and hold it, and and
also it just, like you say, it's sort of, I guess I wouldn't necessarily say it's less subjective, but it's more, the subjectivity is more focused, I guess, is how I would describe it. So like you want to point out that certain aspects. There's certain aspects. So like you were saying, the flake removals of a core, or if you're looking, when doing microanalysis, for example, you need to draw the objects and then you mark the different points where the wear is and all of this kind of thing. Whereas if you have a photo, you can do it, but it's harder to kind of make those distinctions and show the different platforms. And I think it's easier to make it look 3D with a drawing than with a photo sometimes. So yeah, no, indeed, like we were saying, making the drawing can allow it to be sort of more 3D, like more tangible almost.
Yeah, I think I am biased with archaeological illustration.
Because you are an illustrator.
Yeah. I think there's some really cool points you can use them in conjunction as well. I think that's the thing. It's neither one is better than the other, but you can use them all together. And that's what we should focus on. So like I still know archaeological units that still use black and white photos because they think it gives them more information. So I think as long as you're trying to put the information first, you're going to have a successful excavation and report. Yeah. So for finds photography, it's good to take pictures of the find, because you're not going to get the kind of type of colors and things like that.
And also the different shadows and everything. Like you play around with the light placement and everything when you're taking photographs of the finds, so you can show different aspects of things that you want to like highlight as well?
Yeah,
in terms of
highlight
shadows
and
and shape.
absolutely.
And stuff like that?
Yeah. And then, then you can also do an illustration of it. And then you can even do a 3D scan as well. So there's lots of different stuff that you can do as long as it depends on your budget. But for us right now, we have an unlimited budget.
Yes, excellent.
Which is great.
Actually, as well, speaking about finds illustration, there's a really cool project and I can't remember what it's called now, but I will find it and I will put it in the show notes if I find it. It might have stopped now, actually. Maybe she's no longer going, but there was, I think it was a woman who I followed on Instagram, and she started this new initiative of illustrating finds. She was an archaeological illustrator, but she'd illustrate them with hands as the, like hands holding them as the,
cool.
scale rather than scale bar. And she said it changes the perception of the object so much when you're looking at it. If you look at it held in someone's hand compared to being held, like just laid down with a little scale like bar next to it, which I found really interesting. I mean, of course, like she said as well, she said, this is one version, like it's a complement.
Yes, of course,
be a replacement. But it was just really interesting to see that and it was a really simple hand. It's basically just an outline of a hand, and then the object itself is really detailed in its drawing.
Oh, I see. It
just made it so much more, you kind of thought about it a little bit more as a...
That's interesting, because it does change the interpretation of the object as well, because then you're automatically assuming that it has anything like hand related, if that makes sense too.
That too.
So so that's interesting. Yeah, but it's so fun when we put the humanity back into it a little bit.
It's fun.
It's fun, but then also that's subjective too.
Yeah, that's giving an interpretation to something.
Yeah.
And that's the problem as well with when you're trying to like depict the past. I've had some really interesting discussions with people who are who do, well, you do that as well, right? Like illustrations of past cultures and things.
Yeah, I just don't put people in it because I can't draw people. That's the only reason.
But that was actually a really interesting discussion that we had. I think it was on the X-Arc Show podcast, actually. And we had someone who does photography, but he does like photography of prehistoric scenes, basically. Mm-hmm. So he uses reenactors and stuff. But then at some point he was realizing all the reenactors he was using were white, for example, that just automatically...
It's an interpretation, it's a bias. Yeah, exactly.
But then it's also then that problem of being like, okay, but then do I... Like the problem with something visual is you see it and that's it. You can't really change what you see. Like, if you see someone who's white, you can't be like, oh yes, but maybe they are not, It's like, well, maybe they are not, but in this picture they are. So that's what I'm visualizing now in my head, It's this whole...
It's washing the truth as well, isn't it?
That's a big problem when you're trying to visualize things and when you're trying to present even actual objects. So not things that are, imagined, but actual objects. You also have to be really careful in how you present it and how you see it, how you bias interpretations. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But luckily, we won't have to go too deep into that for a report. No. We can tell you, basically, we'll tell you the object, what we think the object is, and the diameter. Oh, sorry, I was thinking immediately of pottery.
We find a lot of pottery, to be fair. Yeah. I mean, we always do.
The size of the object. So it's usually in millimeters.
Yeah.
And then you'll have a whole table at the back of all the different objects that we'll find in the report. Yeah. And then the really pretty ones, the ones that were like, this is so exciting.
Like those beads.
You'll take a big picture and they'll be front and center. Mm-hmm.
Or if there's like things like there was that really interesting shard of pottery, right? Which came from like really far, that looked like it was even sort of potentially original Númenórean, but like from
and it had inclusions that were like missing. We could see that it was definitely hand potted and stuff like that.
So that was really interesting. So if there's specific ones that may not look visually like but they tell a really interesting story, they're also included and given a little bit more
if they have decoration.
Or page time.
Those
kinds of things. And of course, all of the analysis that we're having undertaken. Jen's agreed to do some, pollen analysis for us in Archaeobotanical.
To look at the kind of woods, because we did find actually in the much lower layers there was more of a organic stuff. So we did find seeds and we found a bit of wood.
So I think sent that off for carbon dating, which is done.
So there's lots of things that are going to come out from it, which is super exciting.
I think this might actually be a really nice site that we can present at a conference as well, because of course when you're doing an archaeological investigation, if it's sort of a research project, if it's a commercial project, you have your site report, but you can also present it to other people at conferences. So gatherings of fellow archaeologists, so that's how we share our knowledge, right? That's how we share what we do, because not everyone reads everything, right? It's a lot to read everything.
It is a lot to read everything. Yeah, it is.
So you have a lot of different conferences, which are usually like specialized in some way as well. So they'll have like a theme which links everything together somehow. I've been to some very specific ones. There was one about like worked bone, the worked bone group from the Zooarchaeological Society, and which was great. It was really fun. Like, it's really fun to go to the really specialized ones, actually, because there's a much smaller group. Everyone usually knows each other because that's
archaeology.
Like, you know, basically. And for example, microware, there's also a microware conference that happens, the Orana conference, and that's also a very small group, relatively speaking, of people who are involved with that. So and then you also have, of course, the bigger conferences as well, where you present.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just a fun, accessible way of talking about stuff as well. Because I think people learn differently. A report is really for the record.
Yes.
You know, this report we'll hand in to the Númenórean Revitalization Society, and they will have that in their records for all of time. You know,
it's like the data, the raw data.
Yeah, exactly. Because I mean, archaeology is destruction, as every archaeologist says. You know, if we don't record it, then it didn't happen, and then we lose all that information. And because this was such a fantastic site, good opportunity, and we got so much stuff from it. So much stuff. That means that we are potentially going to be changing Middle Earth. I mean,
the dream.
We wouldn't dare change it, Tolkien. I'm so sorry. Please don't. Tolkien, legacy. Please don't come for us. But, you know, there's
gonna get us cancelled. I
know, my God. We're not changing it, I swear.
It's going to stay exactly as it was.
It's staying exactly as it was.
That's what we were saying last episode. We're not changing things. We're just exploring it at a deeper level.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So there's lots of things that we can do. So we also should mention that we actually might be presenting on Martraud at a real world conference this year.
True. Very exciting.
At the time of this recording, we haven't yet heard if it's been accepted.
Cross your fingers.
But we have submitted a poster to the EEAs, which is the European Association of Archaeologists, which will be taking place this year in Belgrade. How exciting. Tilly will be going.
I'm going in person. Yeah, looking forward to it.
I'm not. I'm stuck in Middle Earth, you know. I've got things to do.
We've got to keep someone there as a representative.
Yeah, obviously. Otherwise, you know, the dragons will take over again. So make sure to follow our socials to see if we got accepted and to learn more.
Yeah, hopefully we'll try and like present it somewhere as well, what we have, so that it's available to everyone to watch, even if you don't go to the EAAs. I'm sure we can share it somewhere else as well. Okay, well, I think, we've still got a lot to do then with preparing the site report and sorting through all of those pictures and everything and all the digital maps and stuff. But I think we've got a lot to do. I think it's been good.
I think so.
Excellent. Well, we hope that you enjoyed our sort of little mini quest today and last episode. If you did, as always, please leave us a review wherever you listen to us. It really helps to support us and the rest of the Archaeology Podcast Network. By the way, speaking of the rest of the APN, if you're interested in hearing more about actual like field archaeology and excavation, there's a great series on the APN called the CRM Archaeology Podcast, Cultural Resource Management. Yes, which is what sort of commercial archaeology is in the US. And there's a really great crew who are our team of hosts on that podcast, and they talk all about various issues involved with excavation, commercial excavation, field archaeology. So make sure to check them out if you don't already. If you have any ideas for future episodes of And My Trowel, or maybe you want to discuss a past episode, you can contact us through social media or join the free APN Discord server, where all of our other shows are as well. We'd love to hear your feedback. All of the contact information for us, as well as further reading and links to the points discussed today, can be found in the show notes.
Oh, wow.
What?
I just read this scroll that got pushed through our letterbox. It's for a really exciting quest.
Oh, let me see.
The Archaeology Podcast Network is 10 years old this year. Our executive producer is Ashley Airy, our social media coordinator is Matilda Siebrecht, and our chief editor is Rachel Roden. The Archaeology Podcast Network was co-founded by Chris Webster and Tristan Boyle in 2014 and is part of Cultura Media and DigTech LLC.
This has been a presentation of the Archaeology Podcast Network. Visit us on the web for show notes and other podcasts at www.archpodnet.com. Contact us at chris@archaeologypodcastnetwork.com.